haven't arranged with, Lisa in terms of
Oh,
transfer.
it is 6 o'clock, ladies and gentlemen. I'm gonna call this meeting to order. Thank you. Calling this meeting to order of the Board of Selectmen for December 5th, 2022. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of November 21st, 2022. Any thoughts on that?
Make a motion, we accept the minutes.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next, we have board reports. I did attend a budget committee meeting. I thought it went very smoothly. Looking at, the library and the recreation committee. There was one other item, I think, which slips my mind at the moment.
We just talked about projects that
Yeah.
could possibly be funded. with
Projects,
fund balance If we have the fund balance.
Yeah.
to fund.
And, while there were many questions and good discussion, I don't think there was any pushback on the budget numbers we received, and I'm very happy with the work that the department heads and the town manager have done thus far. Next meeting will be on December 13th at the Community Building Employee Compensation Discussion and following department presentations. So that could be well attended. And I go in for surgery the next day. All righty. Town managers, oh, wait a minute, you have,
The conservation commission has not had a meeting since our last meeting, so I don't have anything to
Okay.
report.
town managers report.
Okay. Well, I'd like to start by taking a minute to thank Scott Johnston for his service to the community. Scott was hired in November of 2000 and he worked until last week. So 22 years he served the town of Enfield before his retirement. He dedicated a lot of himself to make sure the roads, stormwater systems, and other public works assets were taken care of. And just want to wish Scott well in a much-deserved retirement. Thank him.
And thank him from the Board of Selectmen also.
With that, we've filled our highway supervisor position. As I told you, I have asked Jeremy Clay to join us today. He's joining us via Teams, so he could go home. But he comes to us from the town of Hanover, where he served as the Deputy Director of Public Works. And he previously held a similar position with the city of Claremont. Jeremy served in the U.S. Air Force, where he worked on roadways and runway projects along with management. Jeremy has vast knowledge in road and stormwater maintenance and has a strong background in budgeting and project management. He started with the town on November 28th and overlapped with Scott Johnston for his last 4 days on the job so they could do a transfer and help Jeremy learn the town of Enfield as much as he could in 4 days. And so I'd like to welcome Jeremy Clay to the town of Enfield. He has a small picture up there and just wanted him to be able to say hi and the select board have any chance to say anything they would like to or ask any questions. So,
Well, welcome to the town of Enfield. It's good to see you.
Thank you much. I appreciate it.
I don't have any questions. You have questions?
No, just welcome to town.
No, yeah, we look forward to your work.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you, sir.
With that, continuing on staff, we have our grounds position open and we've received multiple applications for this position. Talking with Jim Taylor today, we'll be interviewing for that position soon, but we are still accepting applications and encourage anyone who would like to work for our Public Works Department to apply for that position. And no real updates on the police position. We're continuing to work through background checks and all the things that go along with that. We did make the conditional offer of employment as you know, so we're working through that, hopefully to bring a person on in the near future. Wanted to give a little update, as I mentioned in our last meeting, that the boil water order had been lifted on November 17th. We had some concern on listserv and other places if you heard about the chlorination of the water, and we did put it in the newsletter and put some information out, but just wanted to let you know we continue to work with the State Department of Environmental Services as we chlorinate the water. They wanted us to chlorinate for at least 30 days after the bloom, after we tested negative. Our plan is to continue chlorinating through the end of this year with the hopes in the next week or two to start reducing the ppm or the parts per million within the water to kind of wean ourselves off of the chlorine as we go into the next year. So we'll continue to monitor that and work with DES and keep you apprised of what's happening. With that, we had some good news. We have started the drilling of the new well. So
Really?
the well drilling company, Cushings and Sons, moved equipment into the new well site last Friday morning and began drilling. The site's located about 300 feet northeast of the existing marsh well at the end of the temporary access road that the DPW crews constructed during the week of Thanksgiving. By 2 o'clock on Friday, they had drilled 30 feet and they hit bedrock at 18 feet. So they were doing well. They were going to continue drilling today and into the week to hit 50 feet where they'll stop and put in the well casing before hooking up the pneumatic drill and continuing to drill until we reach water. So it's exciting to see work starting on that new well, and hopefully that ends up being a good well that we can use into the future. Public safety building and Whitney Hall project update. I'm going to say not a lot's happened, but a lot's happened in the time frame since we last met. We continue to meet with our contractors. The MPAC committee has narrowed down to a final floor plan now, so we're making a few tweaks on that, and we're excited to come back together and finish the finalization of that floor plan and the site map of what we're looking at building. Once we get a little bit farther on that, I'll be able to bring those drawings in and just show you guys what we're looking at. With that, the preliminary survey work has been completed and delivered to our architects and our other engineering firm, so they can start on the final engineering for construction. And then SW Cole, our geothermal, our geotechnical contractors, will be here this Friday, December 9th, to complete the borings for the final engineering. So things are starting to come together, things are starting to move, but not a lot of show stuff, just a lot of cogs in the wheel behind the scenes that are working. As for Whitney Hall, I continue to work with USDA to complete loan applications and have contacted Mascoma Bank today to see what the comparable interest rates will be. And as we move towards the new year, we'll make a decision on which way we're going to go with that. I guess on the good news, they'll change before we actually would be able to sign it, but USDA's interest rate's at 3.5% right now, so it's
Wow,
still relatively low.
that's pretty good.
And then I just wanted to give an update. I've been working a little bit with some groups on a watershed management plan. After the algae bloom this past summer, in Mascoma Lakes, there were some efforts working with the City of Lebanon and Mascoma Lakeside Association, Crystal Lake Association, and many other organizations throughout the area to make sure that we look and establish procedures to maintain clean water in our lakes, rivers, and streams. I've been meeting with Jim Martell, who's a lakefront property owner and also part of the Mascoma Lake Association. We talked a little bit. They wanted to put in for a grant to do a full watershed master plan, if you will, to watershed protection plan. After talking with him, I set a meeting today with the City of Lebanon, and Jim Martell, myself, and the planners from the City of Lebanon sat down and talked. We think, this is a little bit more of a regional effort, so we're going to be reaching out to Granite State Rural Water and the Upper Valley Lake Sunapee Regional Planning Commission to see if we can work with them to get a grant and to do a regional watershed, master watershed plan. So we'll be continuing to work on that. I believe those grants are due, the letter of intent for those are late next summer, so we have some time to plan and start putting that in place. But I think it'd be good to get a bunch of groups from around the area to start talking about how we can protect our water sources.
Good idea.
And then the only other update I have from that, we put in the back of your packet a a tax collection update that you've seen, and I just wanted to update that since we sent this out last week, we have received $554,000 of additional tax revenue. And that's all I have for my town manager's report.
Okay. Any communications? I don't think so. Okay, going on to business. First item up is the Conservation Commission warrant articles. And who will be presenting those?
Dr. Ticewell, I can talk a little bit on Article 1 because there's going to be a change to that. As I put in your packet, I think I put that we spoke to DRA. That is inaccurate, but I do have here Conservation Commission bulletins, and then what's this one? The Municipal Conservation Fund Guidebook. And in there, it discusses, this is where we got that information, that DRA states that Article 1 would have to be approved annually and could not be a perpetual allocation. And talking with Elisa, I don't know if this is the exact reason, but in the past, they kind of used to do that. And then since then, we have put a line item that is a direct budget item into the conservation fund. So I'll let Dr. Tice speak to Article 1 before I won't speak for him.
Dr. Tice?
I haven't talked to the Conservation Commission yet, but I think we, under the circumstances, which I was not aware, that Alan Strickland, a former chair of the Conservation Commission, had negotiated with Lisa Bennett. We will simply withdraw the first, that particular article from the consideration. The others are basically presented to the Board of Selectmen to give them an opportunity to demonstrate their interest in keeping open space, wildlife management, and protecting water resources here in Enfield. And also potentially to provide the Conservation Commission with a small amount of funds from the current use fees, because we are in the process of trying to establish a trail master for maintenance and control of the debris that falls on the trails and Enfields, keep them open for the use of the citizens. And the warrant article to establish a 150-foot setback from prime wetlands here in Enfield has to be presented to the planning board anyway, so I don't know if the Board of Selectmen has anything to say about that, but if they do, they fine, but we have to go before the planning board to ask for their recommendation. Otherwise, that's basically all I have to say. I think the management of the town forest is justified on the basis of the Conservation Commission, on the basis that signs would have to be put up, the trails would have to be maintained, and we have the potential of establishing volunteers to do that. The reason for doing it in a town meeting and a warrant article vote is that the designation of a town forest by that vote means that the designation, if it were ever to be considered changed to not a town forest, would have to come before the citizens of Enfield and vote to change the designation of that area. It also provides for the management by the Conservation Commission under RSA 31-110. So that's the reason we're putting it up as a warrant article, rather than just asking the town to declare it a conservation area.
What is the present setback buffer from wetlands?
50 feet. What happened was the state abdicated the responsibility that they had for designating the 100-foot setback to the town. The town only had a 50-foot setback, which Mr. Taylor, Rob Taylor, was not aware of. And so the default situation took place, and that has created some problems, as you may well know, between the property along Bog Road, where I wanted to build a house within 1 feet prime wetland, which is the largest prime wetland in Enfield, and has significant water protection and wildlife conservation capabilities. I think there are 200 towns that have prime wetlands designations. Only 7 of them have designations of setbacks more than 100 feet. But the studies that have been done show that even a 100-foot setback will only remove 70% of the pollutants that are delivered to the soil before it reaches the wetland. So I don't think 150 feet setback is unwarranted, and it is an effort to protect the quality of water, because a lot of the groundwater that runs into the aquifers that are used for wells here comes from prime wetlands.
Thank you very much.
Questions, I'll answer it, but I think that covers the basis. We would be happy to have the Board of Selectmen recommend those articles that they have relevance to.
Could I say something?
Certainly.
Hi. I'm Lee Davis, been a conservation member for almost a year. And I just wanted to let you know that members of this Conservation Commission, very enthusiastic about education, getting school children involved, enlightened as to what conservation is and all the natural resources we have. I think we have someone starting to work on that. There used to be a program where someone went into the schools and just brought things in to show conservation, just to start the thought process of what a good thing conservation is. We've got a lot of things we want to do. We're setting up a meeting with DES, an open forum, educational, that's going to be held in February. And we're going to invite all the boards to come and hear. He is going to discuss wetlands and shoreline protection. And so we've got a lot of things going, and we'd just like to know we have your support. And let us keep rolling along, trying to improve what we do in helping the community. That's all I want to say.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there other comments from the public? Eric?
I guess I'll say 3 things. One, just sort of on Article 2, I guess I need a lot more information on the intents and how those intents would be managed as far as what the expenditures would be if we were to dedicate funds going forward in that manner. I guess that in many ways, I think that a better way to budget is to say, here's what the projects are, and then decide how to fund them rather than provide funding and then decide what the projects are. So I have that concern with Article 2. Article 3, the only thing I'd say there is the last sentence, no tax impact. Zoning articles always have tax impacts, even if they're indirect, so I just encourage that statement be carefully considered before a final article would be drafted. And then on the town forest, and I'm certainly not opposed to a town forest, but I do think it's a little too soon to make a decision of that nature with this property. Certainly, there've been a lot of different ideas put forth, and I think exploring the variety of ideas before making a decision would be a better approach.
And we do have a committee that is looking into that.
Right.
We have carefully chosen. I
Well,
wouldn't want to.
Not a committee for that.
Not for that
We just
one?
asked the town manager.
No, and we
Oh,
can
all right.
have a little bit of that discussion.
Sorry about that.
Mhm. I just know there's been different ideas put forth. I'd be interested to hear all of the ideas before making a decision on what to do with that property. Because there are quite a few impacts on it in a variety of ways.
Yeah, I personally am very much in favor of conserving as much of that land as is possible. You know, we may need to have some sort of parking available up there. You know, whether we want to sell any of it all is a matter to be determined. I think it's too early to do that. My sense is that as a board, we really want to keep as much land as possible conserved up there. But I'm not sure we're ready for a warrant article on that.
You mean ready to support?
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
The Conservation Commission has also looked into a place there where parking could be established. And as the parking lot was established for the Harrisbrook Park, we do have the funds for making that gravel parking lot available. It won't cost the town anything for that purpose.
As for Conservation Article 2, that's an awful lot of money that we'll approve. And I'm not comfortable saying that that should flow into the coffers of the Conservation Commission on a yearly basis. I think that's something that needs to be managed by the selectmen.
May I ask a question?
So sure,
What is we're only asking for 50%. Does anybody have an idea of what that would amount to in terms of current use fees that are
I can
brought to the town?
tell you the last 3 years. The last 3
Yeah.
years in current land use change, the town brought in 2019, we brought in $12,798. In 2020, it was $46,148, and in 2021, it was $42,448.
So what if we cut that to 25%? Or 10%? I mean, the warrant article can be put up, whether the Board of Selectmen supports it or not, or we could reduce it. I was not aware that that was the quantity of funds that was coming to it. Well, we could always reduce the percentage if that would help the Board of Selectmen to recognize that, you know, we're not trying to break the town. We're trying to cover the expenses that we anticipate in establishing volunteer services and compensation for funds that are made or that are expended to keep the trails open ourselves.
So there's my comments more about that process where it seems we need to know what the intended projects are and the intended expenditures are before creating funding versus saying, oh, it would have, $50,000 over 3 years. How should we spend the money? We should say, here's what we want to do, and then make a decision of, is that worth spending the money on? So to my end, this is sort of the backwards order. If you decide what you want to do, and then you figure out whether you want to spend the money on it or not. And then once you decide you want to spend the money, you say, okay, now how do we get the money? And there's a lot of different avenues in all of those. So until we have a clear sort of plan on not just what the intended expenditures would be, but on how those would be managed and reported onto the town. And, there's a big, long string of things that have to happen there, none of which are trivial. I don't think I'd be ready to support putting any amount just away for a dedicated fund until we answer all of those questions.
Yeah, if it's for annual trail maintenance or something, that's something we can easily budget on.
Right, no, I mean, depending on what it is, there's different budget avenues, that come forth to do different things, and without knowing what, an open-ended pool of money is not, to my mind, the best way to manage the town's funds.
Stephen has a question.
yes, Sealy, you have a question? We we can't hear you yet. You may be on mute.
You hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay. I wanted to make a comment on this kind of funding and the role of the conservation commission for years since they've started, I think 45, 50 years, have always
We're losing you. You're going in and out. I can't really understand what you're saying.
okay. All right. Hang on a minute. Am I good? Nah.
You're better now.
I'm better now? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So to use this kind of, the role of the Conservation Commission actually is to save money and to conserve and to, pay for studies or, I know Dr. East is talking about the trails, but there's so much. We paid for the wetland study. There's so much the Conservation Commission does. And the amount that they get, a lot of towns do this, they get a percentage. Some get it all from the current use. But I don't think that I understand about you want to know what they're going to spend the money on and all those kinds of questions. That all goes into public hearing, that all gets announced. So it's not, they're just going to come up and just do this. I made the mistake of not knowing that at one time when I was chairman. So when we purchased a piece of land, so I know that it does go through a process, and you should be aware of that. The commission needs to really get some more funds so they can be there to be ready, even if it's to purchase something, a piece of land or an easement, or as I said, a study. They need that kind of funds. It's nothing that is going to do something that the town is not going to be aware of or not going to be asked about, or you'd have your public hearing. But I'm saying it's really, really important. And there are conservations all over the state that do this, and it's a source of their funding. So I just want to, I know you're thinking that, the town's going to do something or the Conservation Commission is going to do something and not have your opinion or approval of it. And that's not the way it goes. And I want you to understand that you'll have your approval at any public hearing for it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
If I may add to that, I have looked into Grantham, Grafton, and I believe Plainfield. Grafton receives 100% of the current use with no limits. Canaan receives 50% of the current use fees up to $5,000 a year. So there are communities immediately around us that have the same options with regard to current use at various levels. Enfield apparently has a good deal more current use fees than I had originally anticipated. But reducing the percentage would certainly be useful. The problem with getting the project and then looking for the funding is the delay and the fact that it reduces the opportunity to act expeditiously. And I'm talking about not necessarily leasing properties or getting right of ways or anything else. I'm talking about just maintaining the trails, getting people to participate or come to deliver lectures about environmental issues and so forth, which sometimes only comes up when they have time available and doesn't give us much time to go and request funds at that point. So that's only an additional aspect.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other comments or questions? Yes.
Yes, Lee Davis again. as I understand it, if we were allotted a certain fraction of that particular money, I think it's a good safeguard that we have to come and have a public hearing and get approval. Not like we have an open check. What, is that the way do I understand it correctly, what Celia was talking about?
Well, I'm not really familiar with the whole process.
I'm gonna say, from my understanding, the Conservation Commission would have authority to spend. But they would and need to go through the public hearing process, just like the select board does, but they wouldn't need select board approval to expend the funds.
I guess one of the questions we have to ask is, do we want to sort of essentially abdicate select board responsibility or control over this process? I mean, we may agree with the aims of it, but do we agree with the process?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, the process of expending it could always be brought to the select board for their consideration and approval. The other possibility is something that you might want to consider too, is that every year the town budgets the Conservation Commission with a certain amount of money. Were the income from with the current use fees sufficient to support that, we could always rescind completely our annual budgetary allocation, which would put money back into the coffers of the Conservation Commission as well. I mean, of this town as well. There are all kinds of situations that could be worked out were this article to pass.
Do you have a motion to make?
Do we have to take action tonight?
No, I think we
Yeah,
could take action next meeting if you would like and take more input.
Okay,
And Celia has an additional comment or question,
Sealy, do you have another comment?
and you'll have to unmute again.
Unmute.
Okay,
Okay,
hear me?
yes,
Okay, I just wanted to add to this quickly that the conservation fund is probably the only fund set up by the state that can do this for conservation. And the current use program was originally set up for conservation and also for conserving some of the land without forcing people to have to sell their land because of the taxes. So it gives people, it's a conservation method. So that's where all this came from the beginning. And that's what I just want you to know. Nothing.
appreciate the comment.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
Have current use land. It's a wonderful thing.
I think we should come back and discuss it again. And my only request for Article 2 in particular would be what the intended, like if we're saving money, what are we saving it for? And why is this the best path? Because some of the things like trail maintenance do strike me as more of we could figure out a way to do that within the regular budget. Other things that have been said, like purchasing land, clearly cannot be done within the regular budget. But sort of knowing what the intended purpose of the savings are is an important piece of understanding whether it's a good idea or not.
Well, I submitted to the town manager and to the director of recreation a list of things that were put together by a person we had considered to be potentially a trail master. And that list basically denotes the kind of expenditures and efforts that would be necessary to maintain these trails. I mean, we have quite a few of them here in Enfield. So if he could pass that list on to you, that was something that you could deliberate on too.
Now, one question that I'm sure will come up, but this will go, of course, the planning board is obviously a present buffer to wetlands of 50 feet seems pretty insufficient. 150 feet would put us sort of in the forefront of towns defining wetlands, right? Wetland setback.
Well, this is prime wetland, not all the wetlands. We're interested in preserving the prime wetlands, and there are 4 or 5 of those only here in Enfield. So it's not every wetland that we're talking about. It's just the prime wetlands. And some of those are feed into the wells that the town is using now to supply the municipal services. So those wetlands are very important to maintain in as pristine a condition as possible.
It might be a good idea to present the select board with a map that indicates the prime wetlands.
Every one of you have received the 2001 Natural Resources Inventory copy, and there is maps on there. I think it's map 5 that shows all of the prime wetlands that were designated in 1997 for Enfield.
Springfield
Thank you.
has a 650-foot setback on McDaniel's Marsh.
Okay. Then we will revisit this at our next meeting when perhaps we'll have a full select board available also. Thank you.
Will you need members of the Conservation Commission here for that particular deliberation, or have you gotten everything you need?
I think we have everything we need, as long as I can dig up my map of prime wetlands.
Oh, I have copies of
But if you'd like to be here to comment, by all means, yes.
I have copies of the natural resource inventory. I'll go out to my truck and get one, bring it in.
Thank you.
I'll just repeat myself and encourage, more information on the intended use of monies from our firms.
And very clear.
Thank you. Okay. Next up, we have the proposed personnel policy amendment vacation accrual.
So as I put in your packet, we've been, I want to say slowly, but we've been going through the personnel policy. We've made it through every chapter as an executive team. So there's 5 of us on that team that have looked through and made changes. One of the changes we talked about making was changing our annual vacation leave from a lump sum in January of all your vacation time to a monthly accrual as we do sick leave. And in talking with that, we're not in a place where we can bring the whole personnel policy forward at this time, but we would like to start the vacation accrual this January. So I put a copy in your packet of what we wanted to do. We went through a couple iterations now, mostly on how we would accrue time, and we decided to keep the accrual of time the same as what we're doing right now, instead of changing that, the amount to be accrued anyway. And really all we're asking to change is the monthly accrual of that. Couple other few small changes in there. Right below the scale, there's a sentence in there that just authorizes me to allow an employee to buy out sick leave or vacation time in a hardship situation. Thought it was a good plan to be able to do that. Those don't happen often, but if something does happen and someone's in a bad spot, it would be nice to be able to pay them out if the budget would support that for some vacation time.
Thank you very much.
You pass that on to.
No, I've got one at
You
home.
got one?
I've got one.
Okay.
But yeah, I have a question. I guess I just, if there's no change, just tell me there's no change. On so is the 80 hours of hardship time new? Is that new?
That's
policy?
new.
Okay, I like it. Only So my comment is, you have they have to have taken at least 40 hours for that year. Would it be reasonable to also take into account how much they currently have accrued as part of their cap? If somebody has, 350 hours accrued, is that a reasonable consideration also? On that? Before.
About making them. do
Yeah, no,
40 hours.
not necessarily, well, no, I mean, it's clear they have to have taken 40 for the year already.
Yeah.
Right, but presumably they're accruing more than that, unless they're a very first year employee, they're accruing more than that in the year. I guess my question is, if somebody's been here 10 years, they may well have 200 hours accrued, and they would be rightfully earning, the additional 144 hours that year. Is there any? I guess part of it is also I like to encourage people to take their vacation time.
Yeah.
Not in, but if we're providing additional vacation time, is it worth considering how much they have accrued over the years?
Yeah, they wouldn't be getting additional vacation time.
Well, the 80 hours,
They would be buying them out 80 hours, so writing them a check instead
oh,
of taking time.
okay, I misunderstood that.
Hardship situation.
Oh, okay, no,
That's only for the hardship situation.
Yeah, no, I misunderstood, how that was written. I read that as that somebody could receive additional time off if they had a hardship and needed it. So perhaps.
It was really allowing them to sell back.
Yeah, no, I don't have any problem either way. I think, hardships come up and we want to take care of people in those. I was misunderstanding it, so, okay.
You need a motion on this?
Yes, I would need a motion to
Yep.
move forward.
I make a motion to authorize the town manager to implement the amended vacation policy as presented at the select board meeting on December 5th, 2022, starting on January 1st, 2023.
Is there a second? Yes, there is. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And just so you guys know, it's kind of the way I work, that there has been a few changes since we took it, but when we wrote it, we took it around and talked to all the employees. Actually, some of the changes came from that when they found little things that we didn't notice that would cause problems, and they're aware of it, and we will go back and talk to them and
Okay.
get that implemented.
Outstanding. Next up, 2022 town report, dedication and cover is starting early this year.
Well, in the past, we've waited until the last minute and then you have to pull together some
Yeah.
information. So you don't have to decide tonight. But if
Okay,
you think about it, maybe decide at the next meeting or the first one in January. That gives a little more time to pull together what we need. If you have any ideas, you can share them. I can add them to the list for the next meeting, or you can share them now. Particularly for a cover, if you think there's something particularly noteworthy.
fire trucks are always popular. on the
So
cover.
we have a new fire truck.
Yeah, we did that in 2015.
Wow.
Oh, we got another new one. So
Yeah.
So we can do the next one. We also got another DPW truck. We did that once before.
yeah,
We could.
we got a new well going.
Well.
Nice picture of the well
Very
head.
photogenic.
Okay. I guess we won't make a decision tonight.
We'll bring it back for the next meeting, or
If
would
you
you
guys
rather
have
wait till
ideas.
January?
If you have ideas, if you could email.
Yeah,
myself or
right.
Lisa.
Yeah.
We can put something together, so you're not just sitting here next meeting.
Will do.
As well.
Water and sewer rates, set public hearing date. Under
So
You got a little sheet on that.
we would be looking at setting a public hearing date for your next meeting, so we can get
Mhm.
that warned appropriately.
Yeah,
We did put in, the proposed water rate increase. Consumption charges of 8% to increase operating costs. Raise sewer consumption charges and fixed charges 8% to cover increase in treatment charges by Lebanon and increasing our own operating costs. And raise quarterly meter charges, both water and sewer, 10%.
oh, that's just for the charges for the meters
For the meters
themselves.
Themselves, as we
Yeah.
go through changing out all the meters.
Yeah.
to Make sure we
Okay,
cover that.
all right.
And then as you read this morning, Lebanon's proposing a rate increase. The
Yeah.
rate increase goes from 13.48 per 100 cubic feet to 14.45 per 100 cubic feet, which is a 7.2% increase. And the 8% increase we're asking for encompasses that as well.
Okay. To accept donations for the Enfield Center Townhouse?
Did you want to set the public hearing date?
Oh, okay.
What date? When do we need to do it?
19th of December.
Oh, yeah.
There we
You can
go.
do it at 6 o'clock or 6:30 or whatever makes you happy.
Let's do it at 6 o'clock. Get it done. Is that okay with you?
Yep, that works fine. Can we have a summary for the sewer side, just a summary of where the debt started, where it is now, and when we're on track to pay it off? I think we're a little behind where it originally started, but we're still in good shape.
We're in better shape than we were.
That's great. But that's why I'd like a summary. Because that is a good piece to remind people of as far as the sewer costs go.
Yeah.
Okay. Enfield Center Townhouse Restricted Use Trust Fund. The amount of total new donations for acceptance is $1,000.
Motion to accept?
Make a motion to accept the funds with gratitude.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Mascoma Lakeside Park Trust Fund, total new donations and grants for acceptance, $100.
Make a motion to accept the funds with gratitude.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Follow up to year-end transfers with trustees of trust funds if needed. There are no current issues to be addressed. Well, there you go.
Right now. Didn't know if there'd be anything last minute, so wanted it on the agenda.
Veterans tax credits and exemptions. But these are all just municipal,
Administrative.
administrative items, right? Solar exemption, same thing. 2022 equalization, municipal assessment data certificate. Anything there useful we need to look at anyway, or? No. I don't see anything. Public comments.
Just one comment on one of the things that was said earlier on, the wells. And saying with the prime wetland, in the case of a wellhead, there's a 750-foot protection area, so it would have no effect
No,
on that anyways.
Thank you for reminding us. Appreciate that.
Yeah, I think it's just that to
Right.
recharge the aquifers and
Right.
trying to keep them.
The other thing is, and I don't have final numbers yet, but the budget committee for the school district is meeting with the school board tonight, and they are proposing a 0.11% increase for next year. The only thing that's not in there is the support staff. Contract comes up this year. But basic budget, they're looking at 0.1% increase. So that's, I think, good news. Seeing that's a big chunk of the overall tax rate.
Yes. Amazing.
Yeah. I like that.
There's nothing else on the informational items. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.